Welcome back. It is 6:51 now. The 91st Academy Awards is premiering on ABC Columbia Sunday, February 24th. ABC Columbia's Matt Perrin is reviewing each Best Picture nominee. Today's film breaks down the life of former Vice President Dick Cheney in the biopic Vice.
Welcome to day 2 of the Oscars Overview. You may think that since it's Valentine's Day that of course today's Best Picture recap is going to be A Star is Born, but you'd be wrong. I'm saving that one for next week. Today may be the day of love, but there are several different types of love, and one of those is a love of power. The subject of today's Best Picture nominee definitely had that. There's been a trend in recent years of Best Picture nominees centering around biopics or based on a true story films. And this year is no different, with roughly 6 of the 8 nominees falling into that category. So let's delve into the first of our biopics and check out Dick Cheney's rise to power in Vice. Our movie begins with a young Dick Cheney portrayed by Christian Bale. He drinks too much and fights too much and is getting chastised by his soon-to-be wife Lynn Cheney, portrayed by Amy Adams. Through this talking to, we see Dick decide to get his life together, and he takes his first steps towards becoming a Washington insider. We then skip around through time. We see Cheney in his different roles in Washington. We see how he formed a special relationship with Donald Rumsfeld years ago, which eventually led to him holding the positions of Secretary of Defense and White House Chief of Staff. As fascinating as his rise in D.C. was, we eventually get to the meat of the story as we see Cheney as the CEO of Halliburton being talked into becoming the vice presidential nominee. Of course, this came with conditions, and those conditions allowed him power that few VPs could ever dream of. As the movie progresses, we see Vice President Cheney taking full advantage of his status. He made moves that completely influenced the war overseas following September 11th. He was able to make his company a worldwide powerhouse. He was also able to make decisions that would normally require presidential approval without actually getting it. All in all, we see what kind of politician he actually was, and we as the audience are both shocked and amazed at what he was able to pull off. At the same time, though, we also see his relationships with friends and family that also make us wonder exactly what was going through his head. So, as I said in my original review of this film, right off the top, you can tell this is an Adam McKay movie. It takes a very complicated situation that was going on behind the scenes, shines the light on it, and puts it in layman's terms. Much like The Big Short, much of this story is told through narration, and that in itself is my biggest problem with the movie. You have some amazing actors in here doing amazing work, but their role is much smaller than it should be, since most of the film is explained to us by an everyday guy that it takes most of the movie to figure out who he is. Don't get me wrong, it's a fun way to get the story across, but it takes away from the performances. What is fascinating about the movie is the things that actually transpired in Washington. Some of these events we could have guessed that's how they went down, but some of the things were shown, it's just mind-blowing to discover that they were orchestrated by the then VP. Unlike most biopics, this one is a little more recent history, so it's a little amazing that so much is learned from it. There's definitely a demographic that this movie was made for, but for most, this film is not the escape from reality they are looking for. As far as the award goes, much like The Big Short, this one I think is going to fall a little short of the statue, but I see Best Actor or Actress maybe going their way. This has been your Oscars Overview. Be sure to come back tomorrow for another biopic that's a little more upbeat in a punny sort of way. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Matt. We'll be back with more news and weather after the break.